Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I am the food enthusiast here at J More Living. I am a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your comments and questions for my guest or myself into the comment box, and you'll see me turn my head from time to time to check and see if there's any questions. Uh, Let's see, I'm trying to get the technical side of this up here. Today's guest is third generation restaurateur who has opened multiple restaurants since joining the family business in 2017. A cum laude graduate of Cornell's Hotel School, Sydney Grims is Director of Business Development for the Fearless Restaurant Group located in the Philadelphia, Jersey Shore area. Some of the restaurants you might know is Moshula, White Dog Cafes, Daddy-O, Tucker's Tavern, Autograph Brasserie, Louie Louie, Rosalie, Testarossa, and recently Triple Crown. Let's bring in Sydney.
Hi, Dara. How's it going?
It's doing great, and I'm excited to have you on the show. I've heard fabulous things about you. And I don't need to make this something that you have to live up to. I'm sure you're just going to do great. I always ask at the beginning of the show, what's on your plate to do today other than doing the show?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm actually working on Triple Crown right now, which is we have an event venue and a restaurant that I'm opening in July. So it is a indoor event venue, outdoor event venue, and restaurant. So it's a very large project in Radnor, Pennsylvania, right by Villanova University. And we have 180 guest rooms above, a hotel that is owned by a partner of ours. And I'm also working on a second restaurant. So I'm just working through all the kinks of construction and inspectors showing up today and all that kind of good stuff. So
more power to you.
Never a dull moment.
I would think so. And I guess that's what Director of Business Development means.
Director of Business Development. It's an interesting title. It's really the jack of all trades.
Okay. Another question I always kick off with, tell me about your family table. Now, you're third generation restaurateur, restaurant business. So I don't know, was there a home kitchen table? What does family table mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually funny. The family table actually means a lot. And I think it's why my dad really started in the business as well. Family table, one, my family is incredibly close. I'm the oldest of 4 kids. My youngest brother was actually adopted, lived down in Baltimore, moving back to Baltimore. And I have a brother and sister who are twins. So all 3 of them are actually the same age. And then my mom and dad. And when it comes to family table, life was always pretty hectic growing up with 2 parents that worked. So family table was not maybe traditional Monday through Thursday because everybody was working, especially having a father in the restaurant business as a kid. There wasn't a family table, right? It was not until my mom stayed at home when I was in middle school and high school, and my dad really when I was in high school, that he could step away from work and had trusted managers. So family table looked a little bit different, I would say, when I was growing up than maybe your traditional household. But something that was really important to my family was always Sunday night dinner. So Sundays and Mondays were the days that my parents were off. So Sunday night family dinner was always big. My aunts and uncles all live in the same area, and we would have a big dinner at my parents' house every Sunday night. So that was cousins, aunts and uncles, grandparents would come over for Sunday night dinner. So that was kind of our way of having our family table.
Well, look, bringing family together around the table, even the big family, the cousins and things like that, is definitely great emotional support and a great feeling of love and unity. What is your earliest memory working in the family restaurants? Any favorable memories?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So working versus being is very different. I mean, I remember physically being at the restaurants as a baby. Like 2, 3 years old, I have memories of being in the restaurants, going to work with my dad on Saturdays, being in the pastry kitchen and playing with marzipan, and he would have the pastry chef babysit me while he ran the floor. And so we were lunch and dinner concept. So I would literally hang out in the pastry kitchen during the daytime. And then when it came to working, I started my first job. I was paid under the table when I was 12. I was a greeter at Mashulu, which is a 400-foot ship on Penn's Landing in Philadelphia, right by the bridge on the water, Delaware River. And yeah, I was a coat check every Saturday night. I went to work with my dad. He would run the floor. I would check coats. I made $1 a coat if I was lucky, and it was awesome.
Wasn't that restaurant the the name? What was it? Dreadnought?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's so
Wasn't
it
that and that turns the definition of dreadnought is fearless.
correct,
Is
correct.
that where the restaurant group got its
It
name?
is. I'm really impressed that you drew all those through lines. So, Mashulu is our flagship restaurant, no pun intended, because it actually is a ship. It was built in 1904 in Glasgow, Scotland, and it has a really incredible history, being captured from the U.S. and then, or I'm sorry, being captured by the Nazi Germany at the time in World War I, World War II, and then the Russians stole it, and then the U.S. stole it from them. And the ship has lived 1,000 lives, and there are actually some ghosts that are on the ship, which is pretty crazy. But the original name was Dreadnought, which means fearless. And then when the United States had it, President Woodrow Wilson's wife, Edith Wilson, First Lady Edith Wilson, she was part Seneca Native American, and she named the ship Mashulu, which means one who fears nothing, so fearless in Seneca.
Yeah.
So
The restaurant, all right, so that sort of kicked off the Fearless group, but let's go back to your grandparents'
sure,
restaurant business. I'm just curious. I really couldn't find much.
yeah,
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
sure. So I'm actually, believe it or not, I'm actually fourth generation. So I have on two sides of my family, they were actually in the restaurant business, both on my dad's side. So my dad's grandfather started a restaurant. He was Italian, came over on a ship as just a deckhand, and he came over with a shoe shine kit, obviously in the early 1900s, late 1800s. And him and his brothers, he was the youngest, I think, of four boys, and he was sent to Brooklyn at the time. And they arrived there and they started their own bar, and he worked there, and he was connected to my grandmother, who lived in Philadelphia. And she said, I'm not living in New York City. So they moved to Philadelphia. And my grandmother's dad actually, he had, or this was, I guess, my great grandmother. They started a restaurant together, and then when they had my grandmother, her name was Rosalind, which is why we have our one restaurant, Rosalie, named after her, because that was her nickname. And uh, my grandfather, my dad's dad, who is on the Polish side, ended up taking that restaurant over from his father-in-law. So that's how that restaurant came to be. And then that was in the 50s and 60s, down in 19th and Ludlow in Center City, Philadelphia. It was just a tavern called Central Tavern. And then on my dad's side, the Polish side, they were coal miners in Lackawanna County, which is like upstate PA, and they had a tavern called John's Tavern, which still exists actually to this day, which is pretty crazy. So it's like
Right.
our distant relatives have it, which I found through ancestry.com, which is pretty cool. So lots of family and restaurants, and I think food has always been a really driving force in our family.
Well, for many immigrants, they
Oh, for
come
sure.
in and they create that sense of home with the food that they
Hmm.
bring to the country.
Hmm.
Um, the path wasn't directly back to the family restaurants after graduating from Cornell. Let's talk a little bit about that journey. Um, I mean, I mean, you worked for other restaurant groups. Was it your
Mhm.
goal initially to come back into the family business?
So I knew, I was very lucky to know early on, I think because I was exposed to working at a young age, that I loved working. I liked making money, quite frankly. And I think that I found that restaurants were such an extension of my life that didn't feel like work. So I knew pretty much when I was a freshman in high school, that I wanted to go into the restaurant business. And I knew that I wanted to come back to Philadelphia and work with my dad one day. That was always my goal. It was never my dad's goal. There was never some big grand plan, but I always had something within me that just wanted to come and expand upon what he had started. And after graduating, I decided to take a job in New York to work for very large family run business called Hillstone Restaurant Group. They're a family that owns about 65 restaurants. They're kind of, I would say, like the Goldman Sachs training program of restaurant groups. They're very
Right.
strict. It's very militaristic. They tell you to move, and within 24 hours, they hire a moving company and they move you, and you're starting work the next day in Miami. So it was a very difficult place to work. Really cut my teeth there, I would say, from a true like professional career standpoint. And then from there, I was recruited to work personally for billionaire Ron Perlman and open restaurants for him and run his life. I was kosher for a year, and we fed about 800 people kosher breakfast, lunch, and dinner at our offices, and ran private events for him and galas, and did all sorts of crazy stuff working for him. And then Penn approached my dad about opening a restaurant, which was on Penn's campus, right at the Inn at Penn there. And he asked me if this would be something that I would be interested in doing. And I immediately jumped at the decision. And I think within a month and a half, 2 months, I left New York City and left Ron Perlman and moved back to Philadelphia. And the irony was that he was on the board of trustees at Penn and was opening a building less than a block from my restaurant. He was building a building there at the time. So pretty funny.
Um, you've been growing the company, the group, since back, um, I think since you came back 2017, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Louie. I hope that you looked at my stories because I pulled up the song Louie and then Big White Dog on one of them. That's just my thing because to do the promotion. Rosalie and Wayne and Rosalie. Um, then White Dog Cafes. Let's talk. I mean, that's a name that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And that restaurant had um, a great history to it. It was Judy Wicks.
Correct.
And I guess in anybody, there is a cookbook, the White Dog Cafe cookbook. But Judy Wicks was sort of the Alice Waters of the East Coast.
Correct. Yeah.
Sustainability, getting things, buying local and doing local. And to this day, you're opening up, let's see, White Dog Cafes. You opened up Glen Mills and Chester Springs. But there's a lot of charity being done through White Dog Cafe.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about that?
For sure. So White Dog was started in 1983. So the business is, oh my gosh, 42 years old at this point, which is pretty crazy. We hit 40 years 2 years ago. And Judy Wicks was really super ahead of her time, and incredibly progressive philanthropist, really. And she really wanted to build local economies through food, education around food, but most importantly, sourcing products locally so that we aren't buying from these, large box farms or breweries and that kind of thing. So everything that we do at White Dog has been sustainable for 42 years. We've grown the business and have maintained the bylaws that Judy set in place. And we purchased White Dog from Judy in 2009. So we've owned it almost as long as she has, which is pretty crazy. And we've grown the concept from one store, which was on Penn's campus, 34th and Sansom, to now 5 locations. And aside from obviously the sustainability piece of it and growing local economy is really a large part of what we do is giving back. So we've raised probably close to $300,000 for service dogs. It's a foundation of 501c3 called Alpha Bravo Canine, which is providing service dogs to veterans that suffer from PTSD and other sort of disabilities from their service. It was started by a woman named Jennifer Green, and Jen's son came home from a tour in Iraq and had faced a tremendous amount of hardship. And she trained a dog to help him. And these dogs, you know, by the time all said and done with their training, not only purchasing them, but by the time they're finished with their training, it's close to $40,000.
Wow.
So we've been able to, you know, make a really large dent, almost contributing to 10 dogs being able to go through this process with Jen. And that really changes 10 different people's lives. So it's pretty much a dog a year, I would say, is what we are paying for, which is significantly changing people's lives. Something that we are doing right now, we actually just kicked it off today, which is pretty cool. We are working on a book called The Dogs of White Dog. What we do is we work with a lot of local artists. That's something that's really a passion of mine, is working with the arts community. So we've had, oh my gosh, probably 200 or 300 paintings. Oh my gosh, maybe more than that at this point. Probably 300 to 400 paintings commissioned by local artists of people's dogs in the area. So anytime we open a new restaurant, you're able to have your dog painted for the restaurant, and then the proceeds of that painting gets split between the artist and then Alpha Bravo Canine. In some scenarios, we've also contributed to the Brandywine SPCA or other 501c3s in the area, but our primary focus is Alpha Bravo Canine. There's so many dog organizations that we'd love to support, but the one thing that we're actually starting to kick off today is this The Dogs of White Dog, which will be a book. It'll be our first book following the White Dog Cookbook, which is going to be personifying the dogs of the white dog community. So you can have your dog photographed with Carol Ascott, who is the who is the photographer. She will come to you. You can come to her studio and have your dog photographed for this book. A blurb is put in the book. And we're looking for about 100 dogs right now for that. And then the proceeds, 100% of those proceeds actually go to Alpha Bravo Canine, which is incredible. And Carol's been lovely to work with. She's based in Media, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. I have some great memories of Media, Pennsylvania in my youth, but that's a whole other story and a whole other show. Yes, indeed. What is Fearless Femmes? Is that a charity or?
Great question. So it is being raised by my mom, who I would say is a pretty big feminist, and an aunt who I'm actually raised by pretty much all women, which is pretty crazy. So I have, on my dad's side, he has 3 sisters, and my mom has 1 sister, and we it's funny, we actually have a text thread called the Grimm's Girl Gang, because even all of my cousins, I only have 2 or I guess 3 boy cousins, and everybody else are girls. So there's lots of women in our family, and I would say, growing up with women with big opinions and constantly, telling us to, continue to work and to take care of ourselves and to kind of change the narrative around how women were perceived in their time, right? I would say that supporting women's businesses has always been another passion of mine. So Fearless Femmes was born out of that passion to support other women's business. And so it is a networking group that meets on a quarterly basis. And really the objective is to highlight other women's businesses in the greater Philadelphia and beyond areas. So the networking events can stem from anything from a panel to shopping events to workshops, to just basic networking. So we host them once a quarter. We post them to Fearless Restaurants, Instagram. I post them to my own, which is at Sydney Grimm's. And typically they're anywhere from, I would say, 30 people at the smallest to 150 people. But it's a great way to meet women locally who are in business, have something to say, and are just making a big impact in our communities.
Right. I mean, the your title, go back to Director of Business Development. The responsibilities, you're saying it's a catch-all, but the reality of it is you also minored in real estate finance. So you're into getting the properties, developing them. What other responsibilities falls in under those umbrella of
Sure.
this?
So my job really is a generalist. So I fall in almost like a quarterback for every department, and almost function as like a project manager for everybody. Anybody who has questions or concerns about their department really come through me. It's almost like a chief of staff in a way, but this focuses more on like the strategy behind building the business, softwares we're bringing on, physically building new properties,
Wow.
streamlining efficiencies in departments. So right now we're really trying to flush out our a sales and events team and looking at how can we be more efficient with how we're picking up the phone? How do the phone calls get to you? How do we get to our guests faster? How are we providing hospitality through that experience? So quite literally every department that is facing some sort of issue, or we're trying to create some sort of efficiency, strategic, um, really strategy falls into my realm. So um, it's been it's super fun. I love what I do because it constantly challenges me to be like on my game. But then a lot of what I do is also putting out like really silly fires and ordering, light bulbs and doing really goofy things too. So it's not like I'm using my brain all the time, thank God, because I think I would just turn to mush. But it's really a catch-all for a lot of things. And then a large part of what I do is interior, really, I would say decorating. I'm not a designer by trade.
But you like it. I saw
Oh, I
your
love it.
Instagram.
I love design. I love it. It's a large part of my
Yeah,
life.
right. I found on your Instagram, you posted the 5 lessons I've learned in 10 years in the hospitality field. Own your own story, create unforgettable experiences,
Hmm.
be unwavering in consistency, build a community, not just a customer base, stay fearless in innovation. Anything you'd like to address on that?
I feel like there's so much to address. I think Hillstone really taught me the importance of consistency, and that when people think of a brand, that's really what they're looking for. They're looking for something to count on. I think when it comes to staying fearless in innovation, it's constantly, I think, one of the best lessons that my dad has taught me. And also I think something that my dad is really good at is not staying stagnant, not saying, well, this is how it's always been done and that's that. There's a lot of family businesses that are like that. And what I love about my dad is he's very quick to pivot. He gives a lot of autonomy and he allows us to make really up-to-date decisions that are relevant to the market. So he values younger people's opinions. And I think that um, allowing the business to reflect that change has really brought us not only into 2025, but I would say that it has kept us relevant for 45 years, since he's been in business. So it's really not often that family businesses stay relevant, so to speak, especially in the restaurant business, unless they are like these large corporate businesses. Like we are not corporate, we are owned just by our family. So being willing to change is really important, and to pivot when things aren't going correctly. I've also made through innovation like really stupid decisions that have cost us a lot of money. But like he always said, like, oh yeah, I wouldn't have agreed with that decision, but I allowed you to make that. I allowed you to make that mistake. I think that not every decision you're going to make is a good one, but I think that constantly challenging yourself to come up with ideas and innovate is really it's funny, my title is actually Director of Business Development and Innovation, but I never tell people that because it always sounds so corny. So I just say business development, and that's like, but on our physical roster, it says and innovation. And I'm like, oh, like it just makes me cringe. But but it is about constantly thinking about how can we do things differently, and not settling for what we always did as the answer.
Right. And especially in the tumultuous times,
For sure.
for sure, to continue to grow and expand says a lot. We could probably go into this in great depth, but we're not. We're excited to have you here. And we know that there's more restaurants opening up. Are you going to dip your toes in any place further south, like in the Baltimore,
I
Maryland area?
know. I like it. Baltimore definitely holds a pretty relevant place in our family because my brother went to school there. He went to Loyola. My sister for a long time dated somebody from Baltimore, and my brother is now going back to Baltimore with my future nephew and his hopefully future wife. So he'll be coaching soccer at Gilman, which we're very
Oh,
excited about. But so you never know. Baltimore's just around the corner.
well, I think probably a White Dog Cafe
Oh, I think it
in
would do phenomenal there.
in the right location. That's, as they say, location, location, location.
Oh, it makes or breaks you 1,000%.
Right. Yeah, you got to have the parking. You have to have easy access.
And
That
outdoor
is,
seating. Outdoor seating is like it's outdoor seating, it's parking, it's being on the right street with great traffic, it's signage. There's so many things. I could go on and on about the right location.
right. Years ago, I mean, there are companies that are out there that develop and find locations for businesses,
Sure.
but I think yours has been, you knew your area. It's the area you grew
Mm-hmm.
up in. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, you used to go to the shore because you have restaurants on the Jersey Shore.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, let me get to, I could keep you here for a while, and I know you have things to do. Let me get to the last questions that I wrap up on the show. And before I forget it, people, fearlessrestaurants.com.
Yes, ma'am.
Fearless Restaurants, Instagram. It's all you need to know, Fearless Restaurants. And you can check out all the restaurants, all the varying recipes and or menus that you can take a look at.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fearless Restaurants. Okay, last question. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, this is always such a tough one, and I feel like my answer always changes. I truthfully would not have worried so much about my grades. And that's not something probably most parents want to hear, or many grandparents would want, to tell their kids. But I would say that was something that I was very consumed by. I really knew what I wanted to do. And I think that in college, I was very hard on myself about getting good grades and through growing up. And once I got to college, I knew I wasn't going to go back to school. So I think I obsessed over grades a little too much. So I would tell myself just to relax and kind of enjoy the ride a little bit more and not worry so much about friends and just honestly breathe and just be in the moment.
Okay. Two things that are a must in your refrigerator. We're not going to talk about pretzels in your refrigerator.
Okay, fridge.
Fridge.
Pickles. I love pickles. Pickles are a great snack. My mom and I make pickles. I find that it really settles my stomach actually in the morning. I've always had a very not great, when I wake up in the morning, my stomach just doesn't feel good. So I find that having pickles in a good vinegar really settles your stomach in the morning. And I would also say I am a sauce queen. I love sauces, dressings. So I would probably say just something basic like a Frank's Red Hot. I use that on. I probably lived on that in college because my cooking was not great at the time. So, but I would say that Monday through Thursday when I'm trying to eat healthy and I'm trying to eat a bland, healthy diet, Frank's Red Hot goes pretty much on everything.
It brightens it. So
Exactly.
we will never see you behind the line at the restaurant.
I love to cook at home, but and I was trained back of house through Hillstone, but it is not where I'm happiest at work. Definitely not. I hate being hot, so being on the line was always like a very dismal place for me. Put me in front of guests. I like to talk.
Okay. If you can wake up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would the new talent be?
I would love to sing. I have a horrible voice. I wish I had a good voice. I think a good voice, not just to sing, but in general, I think tone and the intonation of one's voice is really important. My boyfriend was actually in radio for about 50, professional radio for about 15 years in New York, LA, and Chicago. And he has like this great booming voice, and you see how people listen to people with a good voice. So I think having a good voice would be important as a leader.
Okay. What's the top song on your I want to sing this song today
Oh my
list?
gosh. Um, that is so hard. Honestly, I just go back to probably when I was in lower school and I was really trying to audition for the like elite singers and I got rejected and we had to sing Here Comes the Sun. And so I probably would go back to that just to show everybody that I could actually sing it.
Okay. What is the best bite you've had all week? No pretzels, no pickles.
Ooh, best bite I've had all week. I'm a freak for really good sushi. And when I say good sushi, it's not just the fish, but it's the rice. I was trained in proper rice making techniques. And for those that don't know, a lot of times I have a friend who is a chef in New York at a well-known sushi restaurant, a Michelin star sushi restaurant, and he trained in Japan. He's actually Korean, but he moved
Right.
to Japan and lived there, and it took him about 3 years before he was even allowed to touch the rice, let alone the fish. So I had some great sushi this weekend. I think that having good rice, a very vinegary, sugary rice, is very hard to find in the US. So I had great sushi rice at this place called O Sushi, which is just a local family-owned place. And it's always refreshing when you can find good sushi. Truly good rice though.
Right. I understand what you're talking about. A friend of mine who since passed away, the cooling down of the rice.
It's very important. It's
It's
such
very
a process.
important with fans to cool it down,
Hmm.
and to add the sweet vinegar to it. Yes. You are a vinegar freak.
I am.
I can drink vinegar. It doesn't agree with me as much as it agrees with you. But going to like the fancy food show,
Hmm.
I would go around to the vinegar booths
Yeah.
and drink the vinegars. But okay, so we've done that. Best Bite all week, I think. Okay. What didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Hmm. I would say that things that are coming down the pipeline for us with Triple Crown is very exciting. It is a equestrian lifestyle brand, I would call it. It's going to feel a little bit like Mad Men 1950s in its vibe. So I'm very excited for the opening of that store and really the private event space there. I've actually been talking to florists all the way down through Maryland, believe it or not, because we're working with a lot of, obviously, it's going to be a huge wedding venue, bar, bat mitzvah venue. And so I'm very excited for the opening of this location, and we'll be doing our first wedding outside in the summer. And then Testarossa is also our newest brand, and that one would probably be technically closest to the Maryland line. It's in Glen Mills, PA, and Testarossa is the name of a 1980s Ferrari, and it means redhead in Italian. So it's kind of our sexy little naughty sister of Rosalie. And so this is a new brand, and that's kind of on the horizon for Fearless right now. Is we are looking to open a restaurant a year. We have 2 restaurants in the docket right now for 25. We opened 2 in 24, and I think that in 26 we'll take a break for a little bit and just kind of regroup. I would say my biggest piece of advice to someone who is looking to expand their business is to expand very slowly. I think when you're just starting, you don't have the infrastructure in place. And I really witnessed that when I joined the family business
Right.
8.5 years ago. And we did not have a senior management team, and quite literally you're doing everything. And I would say that I more often than not see business owners who expand very rapidly, don't have the infrastructure in place, and end up going bankrupt. So my biggest piece of advice to business owners would be to expand slowly.
Well, take that along, it's like, and stay close. Don't open up in California
Exactly. It's
and
keeping your head
Texas.
close.
Keep it local. You need to be
Exactly.
able to reach and be able to put out the
Be
fires
present.
and get to the places.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Sydney Grims of Fearless Restaurants, I thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you
a
so much,
delight.
Dara.
And I wish you, could shake that shyness that you have.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I, hopefully look forward to connecting to your listeners, and feel free to reach out on the Fearless Restaurants Instagram or at Sydney Grims, and love meeting new people. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And everyone, fearlessrestaurants.com. Thank you, Sydney. Have a
Thank you,
great
Dara.
week and much success.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everyone. What a joy. What a joy. And I think about where I was at her age, and I go, just wasn't there. What a bright, bright woman. Feel free to reach out to me via my email, which is food@jmoreliving, or at Dara Cooks is my Instagram. And on Facebook, I actually have a page called the Food Enthusiast. Next week's guest will be Chef Paul Lever, founder and chief executive chef at Chef Dad Pot Pies. Chef Paul is a veteran of 40 years in the top kitchens across the U.S., returning to notable Maryland restaurants of late. We will answer the question, why pot pies? So tune in next Thursday when Chef Paul is our guest. You can sign up for jmoreliving.com's free This Week in Baltimore Eating newsletter. Click on the Connect button on the top of jmoreliving.com and sign up. All shows are immediately archived in video form on jmoreliving's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. Feel free to go back into our archives and enjoy past shows. May your plates always, always remain full. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday.